video request to cover a topic, so I'm going to do that now. And it's also something that I went over a little bit with a lot of other videos in the comment sections. Now the request I had to do was to cover bullet jump. And what that essentially is when you have, usually it's a revolver, the remaining cartridges and the revolver chambers in the cylinder, sometimes they can creep forward from the G-forces of the gun recoiling. And what can happen is you can decrease the pressure in the remaining rounds by having them pull forward, which increases the chance of a squib round, but it also increases the chance of that bullet coming forward in such an orientation that it can actually lock up the cylinder of your revolver. So I'm going to cover a few things when it comes to that based on the request, but also this is something I wanted to do for a while anyway, because I get into a lot of discussions with people over 38 special versus 9mm revolvers, and the common comments I get is, well, I'm going to get a 9mm revolver because it's got more power than a 38 special. That's kind of subjective in and of itself, because when you put a 9mm cartridge in a revolver with such a short barrel, you're generally going to get 275 foot-pounds of muzzle energy, and there are plenty of plus P38 loads that come out of this same length barrel, about 250 foot-pounds of energy. So 9mm versus 38 special is a lot closer than people think. However, there's going to be even more issues with bullet pull, bullet creep, bullet jump, and something like a 9mm versus a 38 special, and I'll explain that as we go along. Now, when we talk about semi-automatic pistols, now bullet jump really is something that's not really an issue with them, because when you have a magazine, you have all your rounds fully enclosed in a magazine. Look at the second round down in this magazine, for instance. It could not really creep forward very far before it would hit the front of this magazine. Therefore, it could not creep out all the way. It's really a moot point when it comes to semi-automatic pistols. However, if we look at cartridges in and of themselves, something like a lever action rifle cartridge and a revolver cartridge, both are kind of designed in the same way, and they could both potentially have kind of the same issues depending on the firearm it's in. You know, you could have a lever action revolver cartridge, one of those BFR revolvers, and that could happen as well. But let's go on to some more specifics here. Alright, there's basically three reasons that bullet jump happens. The first reason, and the reason why it happens in general, is that you have excessive G-force on cartridges in the gun that are not being fired. When I fire a cartridge, the gun recoils. If there's remaining rounds in the chambers that are unfired, those bullets could creep forward. Generally that doesn't happen, but there's three reasons why it happens more regularly. The first reason is going to be that your gun in and of itself is a very, very light gun. If you have a gun like this was 10.8 ounces before I changed the grip. I'll assume it's probably 11.5 ounces now. It's still a very light gun. So the amount of actual recoil force on this particular gun versus a gun that's 2 or 3 times heavier is going to be significantly more G-force and recoil force on a gun like this. That in and of itself can cause bullet jump. The second reason for bullet jump is going to be from excessively hot loads. You have cartridges that are way above average. That will produce more recoil and more G-force on the gun, and that in and of itself can cause bullet jump. The next very, very significant reason is bullet material. It's going to be more likely on a lead bullet than a copper jacketed bullet. And this particular gun says on it, on the sides, 38 Smith & Wesson Special plus P jacketed. I think some of them say jacketed only. And that is because lead bullets have a significantly softer and slicker surface to them versus a copper jacketed bullet. From all accounts that I know of, the Brinell hardness of lead is about 10 I could be off on these numbers a little bit. And the Brinell hardness of copper is about 30. So you have about 3 times softer or slicker material on a lead bullet versus a copper jacketed bullet. So because of that, you do gain a lot of velocity over a jacketed bullet by using a lead bullet with the same powder charge, but that same slick effect that will give you extra velocity with the same bullet charge will also give you extra chance of that slipping out of the brass, because if you have less friction on that material, there's a lot less friction inside that brass holding the bullet in place. So it's much more likely to happen on a lead bullet. Alright, there's a fourth reason, a very significant reason why you could have bullet jump, and it's something I mentioned at the beginning of the video, how I oftentimes get into conversations with people that say that they would rather have a 9mm revolver versus a .38 special revolver, but that comes with its own issues as why you could get more bullet jump with something like an automatic cartridge versus a revolver cartridge. And not only are you dealing with all the same issues here that could cause bullet jump, but when you take an automatic cartridge, and here's a 45 auto for an example, the only thing holding that projectile in place is a taper crimp. And basically what a taper crimp is you have a smooth bullet that's smooth all the way down the thing, very, very smooth, and you just take the brass and you just squeeze it, just to hold it in with friction. So the only thing holding this cartridge in is friction on the side walls of that bullet. That's very different than what a revolver cartridge uses. And here's some revolver cartridges that I can show you right here. If you look right here, you got lines going all the way around that look like teeth. And that's called a cannelure. That has little fins in it. It has a recessed area, which allows you not to just taper crimp it, but allows the mouth of the brass to roll into it. So basically, it's like the whole outside of the brass is going into a groove, and then it's holding it like this, so that bullet's not going to come out and it's not going to go back in unless it's being fired or hit very, very hard. As where the automatic cartridge, it doesn't need that because, like I explained at the beginning of the video, the magazine holds it in, so they don't need to have that rolled in roll crimp. So how is that significant when it comes to bullet jump? Well, if you don't have that roll in area, and you have an automatic cartridge like this, and you put it in a revolver, that G-force and all that issue that's going to happen, like I previously explained, is going to happen to the automatic cartridge, but there's not that extra roll in to hold it in place. And there's no magazine on the front of this to hold it in place. So therefore, you have a much more likely chance of getting bullet jump with something like an automatic cartridge in a revolver versus a revolver cartridge in a revolver. So my point to that would be, you have to really think about it, whether it is going to be a better choice for you to get a 9mm revolver versus a .38 special revolver. Across the board, much simpler process to get a .38 special revolver. Now you can work around it. There are some cartridges like the Critical Defense 9mm, even though they are automatic cartridges, they actually have a cannelure line going around them. So if you have a die set for that particular cartridge, or you can find somebody that's a hand loader, you could potentially have those 9mm cartridges where you have a roll crimp into those bullets, and then you mark those particular cartridges as your revolver only cartridges, and you could use those in your revolver and not mix them up with your automatic pistol cartridges, because if you try to put those in an automatic pistol, that rolled in mouth of the brass kind of reduces the ability to have the bullet in an automatic chamber on the mouth of the cartridge, and it can actually cause it to go deeper in the automatic chamber than what you're intending, which can cause overpressuring. So you don't want to roll crimp 9mm cartridges that have that cannelure and then shoot them in auto. You want to make sure that you definitely label them as for your revolver only. But that's a workaround when it comes to particular cartridges, automatic cartridges in revolvers. So the worst of the worst situation that you could have when it comes to bullet pull would be to go with as light as possible 9mm revolver you can think of. such as an LCR or something similar in a gun this size, than to use a very heavy, hot, loaded lead projectile 9mm. That right there, I could just about guarantee you're going to get bullet jump with something like that. So you have to be very particular. And I even said in my video where I tested this in my 686, I would not use this cartridge in this gun. Because even though this is a lead bullet, even though this has that cantilever and crimp line on it, and it's rolled in very tight, there's just too much G-force with this particular bullet material of being soft lead and in a gun that weighs 11 ounces. I would get bullet setback, I would get bullet pull, I should say, in something like this. So it's not a good choice for this particular gun. You're going to get that bullet jump. So there's a lot of things to think about when you're thinking about what kind of gun you want to get, what kind of cartridges you want to use. Across the board, if you have a .38 Special revolver and you just use regular old plus P jacketed bullets, you're never ever going to have an issue with it, pretty much. If you get a 9mm revolver and you use jacketed bullets, if they're not plus Ps, generally you will get away with it. You're not really going to have any bullet pull. However, when you start getting into lead bullets, lead hand loads, stuff like that in 9mm, and you want to shoot them through a gun like this, you're probably going to run into some issues. And if you get some very warm loaded cartridges like this, these are more powerful than a 9x19 and a Glock 19 out of this gun. That's a lot of energy. That's a lot of energy to be putting on something with as little friction as this. You're going to get bullet pull with that. So that's basically my rundown of bullet jump. You know, you got to be kind of careful when it comes to these hot loaded cartridges. You got to be careful in automatic chambered revolvers. And you got to be careful to make sure your gun's not too light for the type of load you're pushing through it. So that's just a rundown of it, and I thought I'd share that, give an explanation. And as always, thanks for watching.